Colour television has been around for so long that even your grandparents probably don't remember how mind-blowing it was to see colour television for the first time. You know what? We all know why we're here, don't we? Is it time to crack open a beer?
Hey, if you're going to do it, I'm going to do it.
What's the time over there?
It's 10 a.m.
Okay, so Jordan, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about The Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, the most famous shot in the whole movie is where the whole movie to this point has been sepia tone, black and white.
Yep.
And then Dorothy's house lands in Oz, and she opens the door, and even though her house is still monochrome or black and white, out the door is all this brilliant color.
Yeah, and this is the days before CGI, isn't it? And I'm kind of aware of how they did it, and isn't it like just the house was painted in black and white, and then the outside wasn't, but presumably there's a twist here that I don't know.
Yes, the house itself was actually painted black and white, but what's cool is they actually took Judy Garland's stunt double, Dorothy's stunt double, and painted her black and white as well. And what's cool too is they do it all in one take, so it's basically from behind, painted black and white. Dorothy opens the door, the camera goes out, and the not painted black and white Dorothy runs out in front of the camera, so it kind of looks like it was all the same person, but they actually had both of them standing there the whole time.
Yeah, it's just one seamless transition, and it's probably one of the strongest special effects in cinema.
It's funny too because originally the idea was to do what you would kind of assume, which is back in the day they would do a bunch of this, like to make something color, they would actually have to go in and paint color on to the film. Like they'd have to pay somebody to
that sounds like a rough job.
What's funny though is originally the plan was to do the exact opposite. They were going to shoot the whole scene in color and then go in and paint everything black and white, which would have been way less exciting.
But also, that sounds so weird to film it in color and then paint the frames black and white. It blows my mind. That's a solution someone thought of. Well, clearly, there's no easier way. We have to just paint every frame of the film. Can you think of a better solution? And nobody realized, like, we could just paint the actors.
So that was the plan the whole time, but the movie was going kind of over budget, and they were getting worried that they wouldn't, like nobody had actually figured out how they were going to do that and save money. The producers actually hated the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Wait,
which
what?
Of course
the best song
is
in
like
the movie.
Exactly, like the most famous song, the song that everybody still remembers. They hated it so much, they forced the whole crew to go back to Kansas and like film a bunch of scenes where she did anything but talk about or rainbows or whatever.
That's great. Just go to Kansas and be sad. It's like, so just go to Kansas then.
And it's funny too because it's like it's not only a good song, but it's kind of a good like foreshadowing. I mean, the whole point is it's black and white now, but it's gonna be color. It just fits the movie so well. It's so goofy to think that they're like, nah, I don't see what this has to do with anything.
Executive meddling will never cease to be hilarious to me. Of the things that movie studios like, just cut it out.
That's like, it just went, it was kind of trending on Twitter again a little bit, but Back to the Future, one of the executives wanted it to be called Spaceman from Pluto. Have you ever seen this?
I watched that movie. Spaceman from Pluto, that's an awesome name. That's like Keanu Reeves, whose real name in real life is Keanu Reeves, and he was advised by his agent that's too weird. You can't have a name like that in Hollywood, and they seriously advised him to change his name to Chuck Spadina.
Keanu is such, like, nobody else is going to have that name.
But they said, it's not manly enough, though. It's too weird. His name is like Waterfall in Hawaiian or something like that. So no, Chuck.
Okay.
You're Chuck Spadina now. In the same vein, the film John Wick wasn't called John Wick at first. It was called Scorn. And Keanu Reeves kept forgetting that it was called Scorn. And in interviews just said, I'm in a film called John Wick. And then a producer would tap him, it's not John Wick, it's Scorn. And he'd apologize, it's Scorn. And then they realized that he'd said that it was called John Wick so much, news started reporting it as being called John Wick. And well, it's going to cost us more money to correct the mistake than just roll with it.
The guy that wrote that movie, Derek Kolstad or something, he's been trying to write a movie for like 10 years, and he's written a bunch of scripts, and he basically hadn't had anything hit. I think he had like one script that somebody bought, but then he wrote Scorn, and somehow it ended up with Keanu Reeves, who freaking loved it. And he was saying like how wild it was that one day he wasn't getting anywhere, and then the next day Keanu Reeves is in his house jumping from couch to couch.
Doing,
reenacting.
Doing cool ass moves. Keanu Reeves learned all that in real life, didn't he? He could actually do all the stunts you've seen. And I'm hoping, I'm not sure, can we play clips in these?
Yeah, it just kind of like, we just throw it behind you.
Oh man, we need the audio for this one because Keanu Reeves did his own gun noises for half of the scenes. So you need
gun
to put
noises?
that in. Yeah, he made his own gun noises as he's doing like the behind the scenes, just gun fu martial arts. And you just hear Keanu like, bam, 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 bam. It's like, yeah.
Apparently, Ewan McGregor did that as well for the lightsaber noises in the prequel Star Wars. Yeah, so it's like.
That's apparently a huge problem on Star Wars. They can't convince actors not to do the noise. And there's a industry rumor that I'm inclined to believe that they spent a not insignificant amount of money editing those noises out because it's easier than telling the actors not to do it.
That's funny. And probably having to like CG their mouth closed or something.
Oh man, George Lucas would do it.
That's
like
so funny.
CGI-ing rocks to make R2-D2 hide and the Ewok eyes. When he CGI'd Ewok eyelids. So that's when you know a man is obsessed. When he's sat there in the director's chair like the Ewoks need eyelids. It's very important that Ewoks have eyelids.
I feel like that's very indicative of a person who has no new ideas, where they just kind of are like, I'm going to go back and just continue to fix the one thing that I made that I really liked.
I kind of wish, though, that he'd never sold it so we could see what he'd do now. 'Cause I kind of wish that he kept releasing it so you saw more and more stuff being added. Again, I'm hoping we can put clips in because have you, by any chance, ever seen the behind-the-scenes animatics for what some of the early prequel trilogy fights are meant to look like?
No, I haven't.
They are incredible because they just use bad CGI models to showcase what the fights would look like. And they have one for the Emperor versus Yoda. And they just have this bad CGI Yoda slide into frame and just rock backwards and forwards with his lightsaber. And in that early cut of the fight scene, Yoda throws the Senate seat back at the Emperor.
Okay.
In the early CGI cut, the Emperor was supposed to jump in it and fly out of the Senate in it. And I'm pissed off that didn't make it into the final movie. And I just realised we're talking about just UFO Emperor Palpatine instead of the Wizard of Oz. So maybe we should get back on track. What's this about the Wizard of Oz and just painting people?
Well, I was gonna say we're talking about like having to mess with actors or edit actors or whatever. One of the funny, well, it's not very funny. I guess one of the interesting things about that movie is how many actors almost died on it.
The Tin Man, was it? Is that the famous one? The paint suffocated his skin.
Yeah, it's interesting that it took them so long to think about painting Dorothy's double when the whole movie, like, the witch caught on fire or something because of her paint. And
that can't be real because that happens in the movie. Because that's how they kill the witch, isn't it? She catches on fire and they throw water on it. Or is it the scarecrow catches fire and they throw water on the witch accidentally? Are you saying the Wicked Witch of the West caught on fire?
Yeah, she got third-degree burns. She caught on fire.
Oh no, Wicked Witch. That's a bad day. I guess it's a good way to get a reaction from an actor. You can't fake being on fire.
I think some of it is just she always appeared in like a cloud of smoke and firecrackers. So I think a couple of times those worked too well. She provided her own smoke with her flaming body.
Oh man, and it's a shame that it wasn't a modern production because they had footage of that somewhere. And presumably it got deleted or discarded, but that'd be a hell of a deleted scene.
It'd be like the darkest blooper reel of all time.
Yeah, it's like, isn't as well with the Wizard of Oz? You might be able to help me on this one. Is there a person dead in the Wizard of Oz, or is that like an urban myth?
One of the Munchkins hung themselves in the background or something?
Yeah, is that an urban myth? Because it's one of those things I've heard so much, but I've heard it both ways. And I've never been sure if it's people debunking it or people unbunking it, whatever the term would be.
According to Snopes, it is false.
It is false, but the witch caught on fire.
But the witch did catch on fire. And for Dorothy, they thought, the producers thought she was overweight. She's 16, by the way. And they got her, so that what they did for rapid weight loss, they got her addicted to meth, and then they had her smoke 80 cigarettes a day.
80 cigarettes a day.
Mm-hmm.
How did she sing with that? Like she would have.
I was just gonna say, maybe that's why they cut Somewhere Over the Rainbow initially. It's just like this smoker somewhere, and just.
Just sound like a Tom Waits cover.
There's a leak in the boiler room.
What does that look like in the lunch room? When everyone's sitting down in full costume and she sits down and they get served a plate with 20 cigarettes on it. Is that's your lunch? And then you've got to like just follow it up with just a nice line of meth. And I'm probably going to regret asking this, but was there anybody else on the set of this movie who got grievously injured?
We already kind of mentioned Tin Man, but there's an extra element of it, which is, yes, he wore like poisonous aluminum dust, but actually it was so bad that it caused his lungs to fail, and he had to actually be taken to the hospital. And when the director was like, where the hell is he? Why isn't he on set?
He's dying.
Yeah, he was like, I'm dying because I'm breathing aluminum. And the director said, what are you talking about? It's pure aluminum. That's not...
It's pure poison.
You know, yeah, it's healthy. And they actually fired the original Tin Man because they didn't believe him.
They fired him. He's in his hospital bed, just there in his little bed with like the big cartoon ice pack on his head on a ventilator. It's like, he's definitely faking it. He clearly just doesn't want to come to work anymore.
Right. It's like, what is his motivation? Why would he fake it? Like, why would he need the day off? Like, it's just funny to think that it's this elaborate ruse that the Tin Man was like, okay, I don't want to work today, so I'm going to pretend that my lungs are failing.
So if you're going to get a day off, just say you got diarrhea, because no one ever follows up with that question.
I have a bad case of diarrhea.
So if you just call up and just say, I've got horrible, like, you are not going to get anybody doing follow-up questions to that one. But the one that I know about, like the costuming on that film, is that like, the Cowardly Lion's outfit was made from real lions. Like real lion pelts. And when you look at it and you go, like a lion died for that. Like lions look so awesome, and then they presumably skinned several of them to create this costume for the Cowardly Lion, and it looks terrible.
I know, yeah. It took an awesome lion and made it this really shitty costume.
It's like those awful taxidermied lions that you see just on the internet, like Joe, in old castles in Germany. Is that one where it has the weird, crazy Gene Simmons tongue?
Right.
And then have you ever seen the overstuffed walrus? The story goes, someone hunted a walrus and sent the pelt home to like their castle or something like that, and said, I want you to mount this deadly creature that I hunted. And they didn't realize that walruses were supposed to have wrinkles, so they just kept putting more and more stuffing in until it stopped having wrinkles, and it just resulted in just this immense walrus.
It's very weird. It's like you don't think about how many wrinkles they have until you're looking at one without, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, a walrus should not be smooth. I'm just going to put it out there. Right. Smooth walruses are cursed images through and through, but just... We sent the walrus home. As well, who brags about hunting a walrus? So they look pretty dangerous. It's like just this blob of meat and blubber just on a beach. And just some guy went up and stabbed it and went, yes, I have conquered the deadliest of Earth's creatures, the walrus.
On the Cowardly Lion, by the way, apparently Dorothy, again, the meth-addicted, nicotine-addicted child who was just there trying to do her job.
Yes.
She kept giggling at the Cowardly Lion because he's supposed to be funny, and he looks dumb as hell. And every time she did, the director would take her aside and just slap her.
Oh. That's like a William Friedkin style thing on the set of The Exorcist, where he would slap actors. That's apparently like an old directing technique to get people to look sufficiently frazzled on camera. Where for scenes in The Exorcist where people are supposed to look like have like trembling hands, because they're just so exhausted, he would just slap them very hard across the face. And he would also hide guns around the set and fire them randomly into the air when people wanted to look shocked.
It's funny because we give so much shit to like modern directors that film everything on CG, but there's something to be said. It feels like cheating, like Stanley Kubrick, like actively hunting Shelley Duvall all over The Shining to make her look scared. It's like, we've been cheating since the beginning. We've been putting our actors, like getting them hooked on meth so that they look the way that we want or whatever. It's actually a safer way of doing this crazy thing we've always done.
Like, the only risk that you have is that it might look bad, but I think that's a risk worth taking when the alternative is getting children addicted to meth and they can smoke 80 cigarettes a day whilst backhanding them for laughing at a man dressed like a lion. And it's weird to think that all of those things combined to result in one of the most wonderful and just adorable family-friendly films of all time, and just behind the scenes is just a child being repeatedly slapped.